My name is Ruth, and I am 71 years old. I spent my entire life building something from nothing, raising 3 children with every ounce of love I had. That night, I lay on my kitchen floor, blood dripping from my forehead, my own walking cane beside me. The children I brought into this world did this to me, but they did not know that my phone was still in my pocket. And the first number I called was not 911. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment below and hit that like button. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Have you ever wondered if the children you raised with all your heart could become your greatest enemy? Stay with me. I grew up on a small farm in rural Texas, the kind of place where you learned early that nothing comes free. My parents worked the land until their backs gave out, and I watched them struggle every single day. We did not have much, but we had each other, and that was enough. At least, that is what I believed back then. I met Gerald when I was 19 years old. We both worked at a little restaurant in town. I was a kitchen helper, peeling potatoes and washing dishes until my hands turned red. Gerald delivered orders on an old bicycle that squeaked with every turn. He was not rich. He was not handsome in the traditional sense. But when he smiled at me, something in my chest shifted. He made me believe that 2 people with nothing could build something beautiful together. We got married in 1974 in a tiny ceremony at the local church. My wedding dress was borrowed from my cousin. Our honeymoon was a weekend trip to a lake 2 hours away, but I remember feeling like the luckiest woman alive. Gerald held my hand and said, "Ruth, we are going to make it. I am going to give you everything you deserve." And I believed him. The early years were brutal. We scraped together every penny we could find. Gerald took extra shifts at the restaurant, while I cleaned houses during the day. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a hardware store, and some nights we went to bed hungry so we could save a little more. But we had a dream. We wanted to open our own bakery. In 1985, we finally did it. We borrowed money from everyone we knew. Gerald's uncle gave us $2,000. My mother sold her only piece of jewelry, a gold bracelet her mother had given her, and handed us the cash with tears in her eyes. We signed a lease on a tiny storefront on the corner of Maple Street, and Ruth and Gerald's Bakery was born. Those first years nearly broke us. I woke up at 3 in the morning every single day to start the bread. Gerald handled deliveries and kept the books. We could not afford to hire anyone, so we did everything ourselves. I remember kneading dough until my arms ached, the smell of butter and vanilla filling that cramped kitchen. Some days, we sold out by noon. Other days, we threw away half of what we made, but we never gave up. Derek came first in 1977. I was still working at the restaurant then, and I remember being so tired during my pregnancy that I fell asleep standing up once. But when I held him for the first time, all that exhaustion disappeared. He was perfect. He was ours. I swore I would give him a better life than I had. Pamela arrived in 1980, right when the bakery was still just a dream. I carried her on my hip while I did laundry, fed her, while I planned recipes, sang to her, while I washed dishes. She was a quiet baby, always watching, with those big eyes, taking everything in. Stanley was born in 1984, just a year before we opened the bakery. He was our surprise, our little accident that turned into a blessing. With 3 children and a new business life was chaos. But it was beautiful chaos. I would not have traded it for anything. We sacrificed everything for those kids. I never bought new clothes for myself. Every dollar went to their needs: school supplies, winter coats, birthday parties that we could barely afford. Gerald worked until his back gave out, developing chronic pain that would follow him for the rest of his life. But we did not complain. We were building a future for our family. I remember one Christmas when Derek was about 10. He wanted a bicycle so badly. We could not afford it. But Gerald worked overtime for 3 months, hiding the extra cash in a coffee can under our bed. On Christmas morning, when Derek saw that red bicycle with a big bow on it, his face lit up like I had never seen before. Gerald looked at me with tears in his eyes, and I knew every sacrifice had been worth it. The bakery grew slowly but steadily. One location became 2, then 3. By the time the children were grown, Ruth and Gerald's bakery had 5 locations across the region. We were known for our cinnamon rolls and our apple pies, but more than that, we were known for treating our customers like family, because that is what they were to us. In 2010, a large restaurant group approached us with an offer. They wanted to buy the entire chain. Gerald and I sat at our kitchen table for hours discussing what to do. We were getting older. Gerald's health was declining. And frankly, we were tired. We had given everything to that business for 25 years. Maybe it was time to rest. We sold Ruth and Gerald's bakery for $1,800,000. It was more money than I ever dreamed of having. Gerald cried when he signed the papers, and so did I. That bakery was our baby in a way. But it was time to let go. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs with a big yard and a garden where Gerald could grow tomatoes. We thought we would spend our golden years surrounded by our children and grandchildren, enjoying the fruits of our labor. Gerald deserved that. After everything he had given, he deserved peace. But peace did not last long. Gerald passed away in 2017 from a heart attack. He was sitting in his favorite chair, reading the newspaper, when it happened. One moment he was there, and the next he was gone. Just like that. 53 years of marriage ended in a heartbeat. I stood at his grave and promised him I would be okay. I promised him I would take care of our children just like we always had. I thought the hardest part of my life was behind me. I had no idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. After Gerald died, something changed in my children. Or maybe something had always been there, hiding beneath the surface, and I had been too blind to see it. Either way, the shift was undeniable. Derek started visiting more often, but not to check on me. He always had a reason, and that reason always involved money. The first time, he said he needed $30,000 to invest in a real estate deal. Guaranteed returns, he promised. I would have my money back in 6 months. That was 7 years ago. I never saw a penny of it. The second time, Derek came to me after his second divorce. His ex-wife had taken him to the cleaners, he said. He needed $50,000 to get back on his feet. I wrote the check because that is what mothers do. We help our children when they are struggling. At least, that is what I told myself. Every time I gave Derek money, he disappeared for weeks. No phone calls, no visits, nothing. Then he would show up again, charming and apologetic, with a new story and a new need. And like a fool, I kept giving. Because he was my son. Because I loved him. Because I did not want to believe that my own child was using me. Pamela was different, but not better. She lived only 45 minutes away, but she rarely visited. When she did call, it was always about money. Her children needed private school tuition. Her house needed a new roof. Kevin, her husband, wanted to start a business. Over the years, I paid for all of it. more than $100,000 in tuition alone for my 2 grandchildren. And what did I get in return? I remember calling Pamela one Sunday afternoon, asking if I could come see the kids. She hesitated, then made an excuse about them being too busy with activities. The next week, I tried again. Same excuse. And the week after that. Eventually, I stopped asking. The rejection hurt too much. My 70th birthday was the breaking point. I invited all 3 children to dinner at my house. I cooked for days, making all their favorite dishes. Derek showed up 2 hours late, reeking of alcohol. Pamela stayed for 30 minutes before announcing that Kevin had some emergency at work. Stanley did not come at all. He sent a text message saying he was not feeling well. I sat alone at that big dining table, surrounded by food that no one would eat, and I cried. Gerald's chair was empty across from me. For the first time since he died, I was grateful he was not there to see what our children had become. Stanley worried me the most. He was the baby, and maybe that was the problem. Maybe I had protected him too much. He could never hold down a job, always blaming someone else for his failures. His boss was unfair. His coworkers were jealous. The system was rigged against him. There was always an excuse. When he was 30, I discovered he had a gambling problem. He had lost everything and owed dangerous people money. I paid off his debts, all of them. And I rented him an apartment, paying the rent every month so he would have somewhere safe to live. I thought I was helping. I thought I was being a good mother. Then I found out about the check. Stanley had come to visit one weekend, and after he left, I noticed my checkbook was in the wrong drawer. I looked closer and found that one check was missing. A few days later, my bank called. Someone had forged my signature and cashed a check for $2,000. I knew it was Stanley. There was no one else it could have been. When I confronted him, he broke down crying. He swore he would never do it again. He promised to change. He said he was desperate and did not know what else to do. And because I am his mother, because I have loved him since the moment he was born, I forgave him. But I did not forget. Something hardened inside me that day. A small part of me started to see my children differently. Not as the babies I had rocked to sleep, but as adults who had learned to take advantage of my love. One night, about 6 months after the check incident, I sat down with my financial records. I wanted to know exactly how much I had given my children since Gerald died. The number shocked me. Nearly $400,000 in 8 years. That was almost a quarter of everything Gerald and I had worked for, just gone. And what did I have to show for it? Empty promises and endless excuses. I started to question everything. Was I being a loving mother, or was I enabling their worst behavior? Was I helping them, or was I hurting them? By never letting them face consequences, Gerald would have known what to do. He always had a clear head about these things. But Gerald was gone, and I was alone, trying to navigate this mess by myself. That was when I made my first real decision. I told Derek no the next time he asked for money. His face changed instantly. The charming smile disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. He tried to guilt me, reminding me of everything he had done for the family. When that did not work, he got angry. He called me selfish. He said I was abandoning my own son when he needed me most. But I held firm. And that small act of resistance planted a seed that would grow into something much bigger. My children did not know it yet, but the mother who gave them everything was starting to realize that she deserved something in return. Respect. The meeting came as a surprise. In September of last year, all 3 of my children suddenly wanted to see me, together, at the same time. In all the years since Gerald died, that had never happened. They could not agree on anything, let alone coordinate their schedules. So when Derek called and said they wanted to have a family meeting, I felt a flutter of hope in my chest. Maybe they had finally come to their senses. Maybe they realized how they had been treating me and wanted to make things right. I spent the whole day cleaning the house and preparing snacks. I even bought fresh flowers for the dining table. After so many disappointments, I was desperate to believe that my children still cared. They arrived together, which should have been my first warning sign. Derek parked his expensive car in my driveway. Pamela and Stanley came in Kevin's SUV. When they walked through the door, the atmosphere felt different, tense, like they had rehearsed something on the way over. We sat in the living room, and for a few minutes, we made small talk. "How is work, Derek? How are the kids? Pamela? Are you feeling better, Stanley?" They gave short answers, glancing at each other nervously. I could feel that something was coming, but I did not know what. Then Derek cleared his throat and said they had been worried about me. He said they noticed I was getting older, and they wanted to help me manage my affairs. Pamela pulled out a folder from her purse. Inside was a stack of legal documents. I looked at the papers. Power of attorney, full control over my finances, and property transferred to Derek as the eldest son. I read the words slowly, trying to understand what they were asking me to do. They wanted me to sign over everything. My house, my bank accounts, my investments, everything Gerald and I had built together. I asked why. Derek said it was for my own protection. He said I was forgetting things, that my memory was not what it used to be. Pamela nodded and added that everyone was concerned. Stanley stayed quiet, staring at the floor. I told them I was perfectly fine. My memory was sharp. I had just seen my doctor last month, and he said I was in excellent health for my age. There was no reason for me to give up control of my own life. Derek's expression changed. The concern melted away, replaced by frustration. He leaned forward and said I was being difficult. He said they were trying to help me, and I was throwing it back in their faces. Did I not trust my own children? That question hung in the air like smoke. Did I trust them? I looked at Derek, who had borrowed tens of thousands of dollars and never repaid a cent. I looked at Pamela, who only called when she needed something. I looked at Stanley, who had stolen from me and promised to change, but never did. And I realized with a heaviness in my chest that no, I did not trust them, not anymore. I told them I would not sign anything. I needed time to think. The room erupted. Derek slammed his hand on the coffee table. Pamela's voice turned cold and cutting. Stanley just shook his head like I was being unreasonable. They left angry that night, but I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, the pressure became relentless. Derek called every day, sometimes multiple times. His tone shifted from pleading to demanding to threatening. He said I was going senile and did not know what was good for me. He said they would have to take action if I did not cooperate. Pamela sent text messages accusing me of tearing the family apart. She said I was punishing my grandchildren by being stubborn. If I did not sign the papers, she would not let me see them ever again, as if I was seeing them anyway. That threat only highlighted how little she actually let me into their lives. Stanley showed up unannounced, letting himself in with the spare key I had given him years ago. I found him in Gerald's old office, going through my files. When I asked what he was doing, he mumbled something about looking for a document I had asked him to find. I had asked him for nothing. He was searching for something, probably the original copies of my will or my financial statements. I changed the locks on my filing cabinet that night. I hid my most important documents in a safe deposit box at the bank. And I called Arthur Brennan, the lawyer who had helped Gerald and me for over 30 years. I told him everything that had been happening. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said something that chilled me to the bone. "Ruth," he said, "I think you need to prepare for the worst. They are not going to stop. People who want money badly enough will do terrible things to get it, even to their own mothers." I did not want to believe him. Despite everything, these were still my children. I had held them as babies, wiped their tears, celebrated their birthdays. How could they become the enemy Arthur was describing? I told myself he was being paranoid. I told myself things would calm down eventually. 2 weeks later, I learned how wrong I was. November 15th. That date is burned into my memory like a brand. It was a regular evening, around 8 o'clock. I had eaten a simple dinner, watched some television, and was settling into my chair in the living room when the doorbell rang. I grabbed my cane and made my way to the door. My knees have not been the same since I turned 65, and I need that cane for stability when I walk. It was a gift from Gerald, made of solid oak, with a silver handle shaped like a swan. He gave it to me on our 50th anniversary. "Use this when you need support," he said, "but do not forget that you are stronger than you think." When I opened the door, all 3 of my children were standing there. Derek was in front, and even from a few feet away, I could smell the alcohol on his breath. His eyes were red and unfocused. Pamela stood behind him, her face like stone. Stanley hung back, refusing to meet my gaze. They pushed past me without waiting for an invitation. Derek stumbled into the living room and turned to face me. His voice was loud and slurred. "You are signing those papers tonight," he said. "We are done playing games." I told them to leave. I said we could talk tomorrow when everyone was calm. But Derek was not interested in calm. He took a step toward me, and I instinctively gripped my cane tighter. Something in his eyes frightened me. This was not my son. This was a stranger wearing my son's face. Pamela spoke up then. She said I was being selfish. She said the money belonged to the whole family, not just to me. Did I not understand that they had been counting on this inheritance? Did I not care about their futures? I told her the money was mine and Gerald's. We earned it. We sacrificed for it. And we had every right to decide what happened to it. If they wanted wealth, they could work for it the way we did. Nobody handed us anything. That was when Stanley finally looked at me. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom," he said, "just sign. Make this easy. Please." Something about the way he said "please" broke my heart. He sounded defeated, like he had already given up on being anything other than what he had become. My youngest son, the baby I had nursed and rocked and protected, was standing in my living room asking me to surrender everything so he would not have to face whatever was coming next. I said no. My voice did not waver. I said I would not sign anything under these circumstances, and I wanted them to leave my house immediately. Derek exploded. He screamed that I was ruining everything. He said I was a bitter old woman who wanted to control everyone from beyond the grave. Then he grabbed the vase off the side table and threw it against the wall. Glass shattered everywhere. I turned to go to the phone to call for help, but I was not fast enough. Derek grabbed my cane right out of my hands. For a moment, I thought he was just going to take it away. Then he swung. The first blow hit my lower back. The pain was instant and overwhelming. I stumbled forward, reaching for something to hold on to, but there was nothing there. I fell to the floor, and Derek stood over me, Gerald's cane raised above his head. He hit me again and again. I curled into a ball, trying to protect my head, but one strike caught me on the forehead. I felt the skin split open, felt warm blood running down my face. I screamed for him to stop, but he did not listen. Pamela stood there, watching. She did not move to help me. She did not tell Derek to stop. She just watched her arms crossed, like she was waiting for a business transaction to conclude. Stanley turned away. He faced the window, his shoulders hunched, his hands in his pockets. He did not participate, but he did not stop it either. He just stood there, a coward, to the end. Finally, Derek dropped the cane. It clattered onto the floor next to me. He was breathing hard, his face flushed with rage and exertion. "Go find the papers," he told Pamela. "They have to be somewhere in this house. We will make her sign tonight." Pamela nodded and headed toward Gerald's office. Stanley followed, still not looking at me. Derek lingered for a moment, staring down at my crumpled body. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will understand. This was for your own good." Then he walked away. I lay there on the cold kitchen floor, my body screaming with pain. Blood pooled beneath my head. My ribs felt like they were on fire. For a moment, I thought I might die right there alone and beaten by my own children. But then I remembered something. My phone. It was still in the pocket of my cardigan. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out. The screen was cracked, probably from when I fell, but it still worked. I did not call 911 first. I know that sounds strange. I know most people in my situation would have called for help immediately. But I was not thinking about saving myself. I was thinking about justice. I called Arthur Brennan. He answered on the third ring. His voice was groggy. "Ruth, it is almost midnight. What is wrong?" "They beat me," I said. "My own children beat me. I am bleeding. I think they cracked my ribs. But before you call anyone, I need you to listen. I want to change my will. All of it. They get nothing, not a single penny. Do you understand?" There was silence on the other end. Then Arthur said, "I am recording this conversation. Ruth, go ahead. Tell me exactly what you want." And I did. Lying on that floor, bleeding and broken, I dictated my new wishes. Everything I owned would go to charity. Scholarships for poor students, support for domestic violence victims, donations to the church where Gerald and I were married. My children would be completely disinherited, every single one of them. When I finished, Arthur said he would have the documents ready by morning. Then he asked if I needed him to call an ambulance. "Yes," I said. "And the police. Tell them my children did this." I hung up and dialed 911 myself. The operator asked me to describe my emergency. I spoke clearly, even though every breath hurt. "My name is Ruth," I said. "I am 71 years old. My children just assaulted me. I need help." Then I closed my eyes and waited. The cane lay beside me, spattered with my blood. Gerald's gift turned into a weapon against me. But it would not defeat me. Nothing would. Because as I lay there in the darkness, I made myself a promise. I would survive this, and I would make sure my children understood that the mother they thought they could destroy was stronger than they ever imagined. The ambulance arrived within 15 minutes. I heard the sirens first, then the pounding on the door. When the paramedics found me, I was still conscious, still holding my phone. One of them, a young woman with kind eyes, knelt beside me and told me everything would be okay. I wanted to believe her. They loaded me onto a stretcher and took me to the hospital. The emergency room was bright and cold, full of machines beeping and people rushing around. A doctor named Thompson examined me and listed my injuries. A laceration on my forehead, requiring 7 stitches. Severe bruising on my back and hips. 1 fractured rib. Bruises in the shape of a cane across my shoulders. When she asked how this happened, I told her the truth. My children did this. She stopped writing and looked at me for a long moment. Then she said she was required to report this to the police. I told her I expected nothing less. Officer Rodriguez arrived about an hour later. He was a serious man in his 40s with a notepad and a calm demeanor. He asked me to describe exactly what happened, and I did. Every detail. Derek's drunken rage, Pamela's cold indifference, Stanley's cowardly silence. I gave him their full names, their addresses, everything he needed. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes, without hesitation. He nodded and said they would be in contact with me soon. Before he left, he paused at the door. "Mrs. Ruth," he said, "I have been doing this job for 20 years. What happened to you is one of the worst cases of elder abuse I have seen. You are doing the right thing." Margie showed up around 2 in the morning. She is my neighbor, a widow like me, and she saw the ambulance from her window. When she heard what happened, she drove straight to the hospital. She sat beside my bed and held my hand while I cried, not from the pain, but from the grief. The children I raised, the babies I loved, had become monsters, and I did not know how to process that. Arthur arrived at dawn with a briefcase full of documents. True to his word, he had worked through the night to prepare everything. The new will was ready. All I had to do was sign. I read through every page carefully. Everything I owned would be divided among 3 causes. 40% to a scholarship fund in Gerald's name, helping students from low-income families pursue business degrees. 40% to a local organization supporting victims of domestic violence. 20% to our church. Derek, Pamela, and Stanley were explicitly named and explicitly disinherited. There would be no ambiguity, no loopholes, nothing for them to exploit. I signed the documents in front of 2 witnesses, the nurse on duty and an administrator who Arthur had called in specially. They signed as well, confirming that I was of sound mind and acting of my own free will. Arthur took the papers and locked them in his briefcase. "It is done," he said. "No matter what happens now, they cannot touch what is yours." I nodded, but I was not finished. I asked Arthur to file for a restraining order against all 3 of my children. I did not want them near me, not now, not ever. I also wanted the assault charges pursued to the fullest extent of the law. Derek needed to face consequences for what he did. They all did. Arthur assured me he would handle everything. Before he left, he squeezed my hand gently. "Gerald would be proud of you, Ruth. You are one of the strongest women I know." The days that followed were a blur of police interviews, medical appointments, and legal consultations. Grace, a social worker specializing in elder care, was assigned to my case. She helped me navigate the system, connecting me with resources I did not know existed. She told me that elder abuse is far more common than people think, and most victims never report it. "You are brave," she said. "Your story might help other people find the courage to speak up." Meanwhile, my children were scrambling. Derek hired a lawyer almost immediately. He tried to claim that I was mentally incompetent, that I did not know what I was saying when I changed my will. Arthur was ready for that. He had documentation from my doctor confirming that I was in excellent cognitive health. He had the recording of our phone call, where I clearly and calmly stated my wishes. He had witnesses who saw me sign the documents lucidly and deliberately. Derek's claim went nowhere. Pamela tried a different approach. She sent me a long letter full of apologies and excuses. She said she had been in shock that night, that she never meant for things to go so far. She begged me to reconsider, to remember that she was still my daughter, that her children were still my grandchildren. She signed it with love and hope for reconciliation. I read the letter once, then threw it away. Love does not stand by while someone is beaten. Love does not stay silent when it matters most. Pamela had shown me exactly who she was that night. No amount of pretty words could change that. Stanley left voicemail after voicemail, crying and apologizing. He said he was sorry, that he never wanted things to happen this way. He said he would do anything to make it right. But I noticed he never once said he would testify against Derek. He never offered to tell the truth about what happened. His apologies were empty, designed to make himself feel better, not to actually take responsibility. I did not respond to any of them. My silence was my answer. They had made their choice that night, and now they would live with the consequences. The trial took place 3 months later. It was held in the county courthouse, a building I had walked past hundreds of times, but never entered. Now I was walking through those doors as a victim, as a witness, as a mother seeking justice against her own children. The prosecution laid out the case clearly. Derek was charged with aggravated assault on a senior citizen, a felony that carried significant prison time. Pamela and Stanley were charged as accessories for failing to prevent the assault and failing to report it. All three faced the possibility of jail time and permanent criminal records. Derek's lawyer tried everything. He argued that Derek was intoxicated and did not know what he was doing. He argued that I had provoked the situation by refusing to help my children financially. He even tried to suggest that I had fabricated my injuries for sympathy, but the evidence was overwhelming. The medical records, the police photographs, the testimony of Dr. Thompson and Officer Rodriguez. There was no denying what had happened. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the witness stand slowly. My ribs had healed, but I still felt a twinge of pain with every step. I sat down and looked at the courtroom, the jury of 12 strangers who would decide my children's fate. The judge stern and attentive, and there at the defense table sat Derek, Pamela, and Stanley. Derek looked smaller somehow, like the alcohol and the rage had drained out of him and left behind a hollow shell. Pamela stared straight ahead, refusing to meet my eyes. Stanley glanced at me once, then looked down at his hands. I wondered if they felt any remorse at all, or if they were just sorry they got caught. The prosecutor asked me to describe what happened that night. I told the story from the beginning, the family meeting, the pressure campaign, the night they came to my house. I described every blow Derek struck, every word he shouted, every moment Pamela watched without intervening. I described Stanley turning away, refusing to help his own mother. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. Several jurors wiped their eyes. The prosecutor thanked me and sat down. Derek's lawyer approached for cross-examination. He asked if I had ever refused to help my children when they needed money. I said I had given them nearly $400,000 over 8 years. He asked if I had been planning to disinherit them before the assault. I said no. I had always assumed they would inherit something, until they showed me they did not deserve it. Then he asked the question I knew was coming. "Mrs. Ruth," he said, "do you hate your children?" I thought about it for a moment. I wanted to give an honest answer. "No," I said finally. "I do not hate them. I pity them. They had everything they needed to build good lives, and they threw it away for greed. That is not worthy of hate. It is worthy of pity." The lawyer had nothing else to say. I stepped down from the witness stand and returned to my seat. Arthur patted my arm. "You did wonderfully," he whispered. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood and read the verdicts. Derek was found guilty of aggravated assault on a senior citizen. Pamela was found guilty of accessory to assault. Stanley was found guilty of accessory to assault. I did not feel joy when I heard those words. I did not feel vindication or satisfaction. I just felt tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of hurting. Tired of being disappointed by the people I loved most. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. Derek received 2 years in state prison. Pamela received 1 year of probation and was ordered to pay restitution for my medical expenses. Stanley received 1 year of probation and was required to complete a substance abuse treatment program. All 3 were served with 5-year restraining orders, prohibiting them from coming within 500 feet of me or my property. After the sentencing, a few reporters approached me outside the courthouse. They wanted to know how I felt. They wanted a soundbite for the evening news. I gave them one sentence. I did what I had to do to protect myself, I said. And I hope other mothers never have to make the same choice. Then I got in Arthur's car, and he drove me home. The house was quiet when I walked in. Gerald's photograph smiled at me from the mantel. I stood in front of it for a long time, telling him everything that had happened. I think he heard me. I think he was proud. A year has passed since the trial. In some ways, it feels like a lifetime. In other ways, it feels like yesterday. The bruises have faded. The rib has healed completely. But the scars inside take longer to mend. I sold the big house a few months after the trial. I could not stay there anymore. Every room held memories, some beautiful and some terrible. The kitchen floor, where I lay bleeding. The living room, where Derek screamed at me. The office where Stanley searched for my documents. I needed a fresh start. I moved into a smaller apartment in a community for active seniors. It is nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms with a little balcony where I can grow herbs. But it feels like home. More importantly, it feels safe. Margie helped me move. She has become my closest friend in this new chapter of my life. We have dinner together twice a week, and we take walks in the park when the weather is nice. She lost her husband 5 years ago, so she understands what it means to rebuild a life alone. Having someone who truly understands makes all the difference. I joined a community center where they offer classes for seniors. That is where I met Helen, who has become another dear friend. She is 74, a retired accountant with a wicked sense of humor. We play cards together on Thursday afternoons and complain about politicians and talk about our grandchildren. Well, she talks about her grandchildren. I listen and try not to feel the ache. The scholarship fund in Gerald's name has already given out its first round of awards. 5 young people from low-income backgrounds received money to pursue business degrees. I met them at a small ceremony last spring. They were so full of hope and determination. They reminded me of Gerald and me, all those years ago, dreaming of a bakery we could call our own. That money went to a good place. It will help build futures instead of destroying them. The domestic violence organization used their share to expand their services. They opened a new shelter for victims who need somewhere safe to go. They named one of the rooms after me. The Ruth Room, they call it. A place where people who have been hurt by the ones they love can start to heal. I cried when they told me. I keep busy these days. I volunteer at the community center, teaching baking classes to anyone who wants to learn. My students call me Grandma Ruth, and I do not mind. I show them how to make the cinnamon rolls that made our bakery famous, the ones Gerald loved so much. Watching their faces light up when a batch comes out perfect reminds me why I fell in love with baking in the first place. As for my children, I know a little about how they are doing. Derek served 18 months of his 2-year sentence. He got out early for good behavior. I hear he is working at a car dealership now, trying to rebuild his reputation. Pamela divorced Kevin last year and had to get a job for the first time in her adult life. She works at a retail store, from what I understand. It is probably the hardest she has ever worked. Stanley completed his rehabilitation program and found employment at an auto repair shop. He seems to be staying sober, at least for now. Derek wrote me a letter from prison. He asked if we could meet when he got out. He said he wanted to apologize properly, face to face. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to see him, to look into his eyes, and search for the little boy I once knew. But a bigger part of me knew it was not the right time. Maybe not ever. I wrote back a short note. I told him that when he was ready to show me through his actions, not just his words, that he had truly changed, I would be willing to listen. Until then, I needed to protect my peace. That peace was too hard won to risk on empty promises. I do not hate my children. I realized that during the trial, and I still believe it now, hate takes too much energy, and I do not have any to spare. What I feel is a kind of resigned sadness. Grief for the relationships we could have had. Grief for the family that fell apart. But I have learned to carry that grief without letting it crush me. Forgiveness is a complicated thing. People talk about it like it is simple, like you just decide to forgive and then everything is fine. But real forgiveness takes time. It takes evidence that things have changed. I am open to forgiving my children someday if they earn it. But I am not waiting around for that day. I am living my life building new connections, finding joy where I can. If they become part of that life again, it will be because they showed up as different people, not because I felt obligated to let them back in. Gerald taught me a lot of things over our 53 years together. How to run a business, how to stretch a dollar, how to make the perfect pie crust. But the most important thing he taught me was that love should lift you up, not tear you down. The people who truly love you will never make you feel small or afraid. They will never use your kindness against you. They will never raise a hand to hurt you. I wish I had understood that sooner. I wish I had set boundaries with my children years ago, before things spiraled so far out of control. But I cannot change the past. I can only move forward one day at a time, making choices that honor who I am and what I deserve. If you are watching this and you are in a similar situation, I want you to know something. You are not alone, and it is not your fault. No matter what your children or your family members tell you, you did not deserve to be mistreated. You have every right to protect yourself, even from the people you love most. It is not selfish to want safety and respect. It is survival. They used my own cane against me that night. The cane Gerald gave me, the one he said I should use when I needed support. But I learned something important in the aftermath. True strength does not come from a piece of wood. It comes from inside. It comes from knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less. I am 72 now. I do not know how many years I have left, but I plan to spend every single one of them living on my own terms, surrounded by people who treat me with kindness, doing work that matters, honoring the memory of a man who loved me unconditionally. My children beat me with my own cane, but I beat them with something far more powerful, my own will, my own strength, my own refusal to be a victim. And in the end, that is a victory no one can ever take away. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who mistreated you? How did you find the strength to protect yourself? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is going through the same thing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with others who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more stories about resilience and overcoming hardship. And remember, no matter how old you are, no matter what you have been through, you deserve to be treated with dignity. Thank you for spending this time with me. I am grateful for each and every one of you. May you find peace in your own journey, and may you always remember that you are stronger than you think. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.